How are you, Fred?
I'm excellent. I
Uh,
mean, in the midst of being, shelter in place, it's been
Yeah.
a really amazing month, actually.
Well, thank you so much for taking a little bit of time to be with us. I've asked a bunch of my players to kind of send me some questions and so on. A lot of them would have loved to see you. We were all really looking forward to having you come out and join us again.
This is great.
But this is a nice forum nonetheless. And if possible, it would be great if you started off a little bit with the idea of the information exchange and the dialogue between the coach and the athlete, in particular in the context of what is the role of the coach in the art of human performance?
When I was asked uh, by my coach what I wanted, um, he said, "Well, why don't you tape a golf lesson, and after you tape it, we'll come back and review it." So I was coaching someone. I taped a golf lesson. And back then, it was only a tape; it wasn't even a video. And I came back and we listened to the tape. And he said, "What do you intend for your students?" And I said, to empower them. He goes, "Anything else?" I said, "I don't want to foster dependencies." So, which is empowering in the same way. He said, "Okay, play the tape." So the first thing that happened on the tape was we heard a golf ball get hit. Okay. And I said, "That's a beautiful shot." And he shut off the tape. He said, "Why did you say that?" And I said, "I really want him to appreciate what they did." He said, "What was the lesson about?" I said, "Well, the lesson was about feeling the club face." He said, "Why did you say you wanted to hit it was a beautiful shot?" I said, "Well, I wanted them to like the shot." He said, "Why?" "I wanted them to like the lesson." He said, "Why?" I said, "I want them to like me."
Hmm.
So he said, "Does that have anything to do with what you're up to in life?" I said, "No." He goes, "We'll consider that under fostering dependencies." And after about 10 minutes with my coach, I was so embarrassed. I wanted to just crawl under the table. So the purpose of a coach could be to listen to the commitment of another, provide what could be an extraordinary conversation in which they see things that they have never seen before and have energy to take action on that. But also, one of the purposes of a coach is to honor their own commitment to another human being. And one of the commitments that coaches have, unbeknownst to them, is to have people become good, to get them better. It's almost part of the culture. Get better, be happier. Now, John, would you say that golf professionals are happier than most people playing golf?
I don't think I would make that admission.
It could be more or less, but it's not because they score well. As a matter of fact, in the study that I read with 3,000 players, golf professionals were in the bottom 1/4 of happiness. So if it isn't just about getting better, then what's it about? Now I'm going to regress some back. And I don't get it, we don't get a chance to do this often because we have lots of time. This is not an ESPN 5-minute tip, but I think it'll have a purpose if we do it well. A golf professional or a coach in any sphere is usually someone who's well versed at it in high school and in college. And when we're young, we dream about certain things about what our careers could be. And then somewhere in college, the average golf teacher, you could say, or coach, realizes their game isn't quite good enough to play the professional tour, which is what they dreamed about. Then they love golf, so they stay around golf. And then pretty soon, somewhere like the head professional says to them who have been working as a third assistant or marshal or something, "Why don't you coach the junior clinic or the ladies in chipping?" And we do it and we like it. And so we begin to get into the business of giving golf lessons. Now, what's important is not just the content of what you do, but it's the underpinnings of why you do it and the context. And most of the contexts in our lives are unseen by us. So I go to give a golf lesson, and the unseen context by me is that this is a little bit of an aberration. I should have been playing in the Masters or the US Open because those are the dreams I had when I was a child. So the context that that now breeds is, if I had been better, I feel I would have been more satisfied. And it's unseen. So when you go to a lesson, the only possible thing you can do with the lesson is, if I get them better, then they'll be more satisfied, because that's what I perceive about myself, which is unchallenged by actual experience. So if we just take that the next step further, if that's all there is, and someone still living in the dreams of a child, like sometimes parents push their kids because of their own dreams, if that's all there is in life, then a golf lesson becomes all about getting better. And if that's true, we've missed. But what could a golf lesson be? Well, it could be about learning how to learn. It could be about developing self-trust, learning how to be present, how to be a great playing partner. A coach or a teacher has to step back and say, what's the purpose of that? I mean, having a handicap drop by 3, unless there is an inward revolution, it will produce no satisfaction any greater. That's what I'm clear about. It's my 46th year of doing this. So what's the inward revolution that we're looking at? Maybe the purpose of a coach could be having another person clarify their own purpose. See, if a person clarifies their purpose and they go up to a coach from that and say, you know what I'm about? What I'm about is a person who wants to play with freedom and be the greatest playing partner I can be for another person. Could you coach me in that? That's someone I would love to have as a lesson. I went into the Peace Corps when I was in the 1980s, because I thought having a golf career for the rest of my life was ridiculous. You know, standing on a driving range working with backswings and downswings didn't sound like a meaningful life. When I came out of there 2 years later, out of Africa, I realized it doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't. I could have been an electrician or a counselor or whatever. It just matters who you are and what you bring to it. So I could bring anything that I've learned into a golf lesson. And that made it way more interesting to me and way more valuable, I think, to other people too. So, I mean, in its simplest sense, a coach is someone's listening for what another human being truly wants, and ask questions in such a way they see a context they've never seen before and access to that.
Fred, could you speak a little bit to how you became more clear? Obviously, your book, which has had a profound influence on myself and all of my clients and all of this stuff, tells a story, which is really beautiful. Could you tell us, perhaps in a slightly different wording, you know, what is the story for your self-realization? How did you become confident in this assertion that the goal of coaching is to have another person clarify their purpose?
Well, mostly it's because I had coaching. And one of the coachings I had was, remember a fellow named Tim Galway?
Mm-hmm. Of course.
He wrote books called The Inner Game of Tennis, Inner Game of Golf. They're way ahead of their times, and he's considered the father of modern coaching. I was going to do a golf school called The Inner Game of Golf Golf School with Tim Galway in 1978. And he sat down with me, and we talked about it. And he engaged in something that I had never been engaged in before, I think, in my entire life. And that was called authentic listening. Tim actually was going to make quite a bit of money if we did this. But he listened in a way that he had no skin in the game. He listened in a way that he was in my reality, not his reality. He wasn't going, uh-huh. It wasn't about judgments. It wasn't about being in the labyrinth of his whole stuff through his head. He did not jump into the things that went through his head. His whole job was to have me clarify what I really wanted. It was an amazing experience for an hour or so. And I came out of that realizing that I wanted my own voice and to bring the things that I brought into it. And I never did the Inner Game of Golf School. But see, what I see is that for once in my life, I was actually gotten and listened to. Listening, the person wasn't waiting to speak. They weren't bringing their own opinions and points of view and judgments into the arena. They were just getting my experience, holding up a mirror to me, deepening my experience. And that's, my sense is all great coaching starts with listening. And if I observe coaching, most people start with speaking. The most challenging thing for me with listening is to be in another's reality, as if it's the reality, not a reality, because my reality is no more, excuse the expression, real than theirs. For some weird accident of birth, I've been, grown up in California, middle age right now, middle class, white, with a whole bunch of opinions. That's nothing to do with what's actually real in life. It's just the way I've filtered it and seen it. So I began to get coaching. And I also, from the coaching, began to surrender to at least some small degree my point of view is how it should be. Because I grew up in a typical way in a golf environment. After college, I watched my mentors and I thought my job was to judge and evaluate people. And I was good at it, by the way, according to people. I was known as the golf doctor, the guy with the good eye. You had a problem, I had an answer. Boom, boom, boom. And I liked being the answer man. Everybody came for an answer. But then when I had moments of honesty with myself, nothing magical ever happened in my lessons. I mean, it was just common. So what do you do when you have a moment of despair to realize my whole life is going to look like this if I do this? You try to get better at what you do. So I went for better answers. And I went for the guy with a snappier method or theory. I mean, we could go through methods from turning the barrel to shallow the club out and 50 in between, okay? And I realized nothing really magical or unusual happened then too. Then it finally came to a point I realized, what is the greatest barrier to people learning in front of me? What's going on? And the answer got very clear. The bigger the question, the more valued the question, the better the looking. And the answer was the greatest barrier to learning was judgment. Good and bad and right and wrong, comparison to a tour player, should or shouldn't. The moment I began to voice judgments with another person, I could see it, they got in their head, either tried to perform for me or for hope or something, and they weren't present to what they were doing. So I said, okay, what's the best I can do here is that if I have a judgment, which comes naturally with a human being, we're a judgment machine. If I have a judgment, just don't say it and ask questions that come with. And things really began to change more. I noticed people were a lot more present and they could experience things they've never experienced before. And this piece came from Galway, and it is the foundation piece of the next decades. And the foundation piece is only their awareness develops them or you. And awareness is the capacity to be present to something you've never been present to. And this new experience changes old beliefs. It would be like finding balance on a bicycle. I mean, I know, John, if you and I were to be with someone who's never ridden, we couldn't tell them stuff that would help them ride a bicycle. We create a safe environment, we encourage, and shove them off. And what it teaches them is falling. So I said, okay, if that's true, then not only do my students have to create an extraordinary relationship to failing, so do I. How can we have everybody fail as fast as we can to learn as what we can? Because for most people, failure is something that says it hurts. Don't try again. This is difficult. I was embarrassed. So we have to create an entirely new lexicon and environment for failing. Failing as like brilliant. Fail in the direction of your intent. Fail as fast as you can. And this began to make lessons a lot more valuable to them.